or something like, oh, I don't know, g of x equals 2 over x minus 1. Or h of x equals the square root of x plus 6. Okay, so these are ones that commonly cause people a lot of problems when they're trying to find domain and range. Now, graphing it is always an option. Okay, graphing it is always an option. And that might be a good idea. What you should know about this function right here is that what would be its parent graph? 1 over x. And 1 over x looks something like this. So which direction is this shifted? Right 1. So this one, actually, what we're dealing with actually looks like there's my asymptote right there. And it's probably going to have, you know, like because of the 2 on top, these might be a little bit farther out. But this is the general idea of what the graph looks like. General idea of what the graph looks like. Okay? Now, domain. Let's think of domain. Now, I could find it looking at the graph, or I can find it with the equation. So the domain, can I put in any negative x? Does it appear that I could get, you know, if I put in like -6 or -2 million or -5, -1, is that always, am I going to be able to work that out? Yes. So the domain is going to be -infinity to, all right, is it positive infinity? Can I put every positive number in? Can I put 0 in? I can't. 2 divided by -1 is something I can't work with. 0 minus 1, isn't that -1? 2 divided by -1, is that a valid number? Okay. What number is going to screw me up? Why? Then you get undefined. 2 divided by 0. Can't do it. So the domain is going to be -0 or -infinity to where? 0. Is 0 included? Oh, no, it's not. You can't put 0 in. Oh, you can put 0 in. Sorry, -infinity to where? 1. 1 is the number that causes us a problem. That's not included. Okay? And then, but can't I put in numbers like 2 and 3 and 4 and 1.1 and 1.3? So where would I start it up again? No. 1. Because 1.01 and 1.001, you just don't include 1 again all the way up to infinity. This means everything but 1. Could you write, what's a shorter way to write that domain? X is not equal to, is that an option? Perfect. Yes. I'll take that for domain. Okay, now the range. Okay, now the range is always dependent upon the domain. Okay, the range is going to be dependent upon the domain. So I can put everything in, right? Except for what number? 1. So what am I, you know, okay, so I can't put 1 in, but I can put everything else in. Is there any number that I'm not going to get here? Can you tell by the graph? Any y values you're not going to get? 0. You'll never ever get 0 because you always have to be dividing 2 by something. Okay, is there any way you can do division and get 0? There is. How do you divide and get 0 for an answer?
0.
If the 0 is in the numerator, is 0 ever going to be in the numerator? No. So the range would be -infinity to 0 and
0 to
okay, or
y
cannot equal 0. Okay, are domain and range something I can show you a step-by-step process to do? No. It's called using your brain. Okay, domain and range for this one. Okay, let's do this without a graph at all. This will be our last example. Let's do this without a graph at all. What numbers are not allowed under radicals? Not allowed under radicals. Okay, so over here we know that the numbers not allowed on the bottom are 0, right? That's what we use to help us figure out the domain and range. Here under radicals we know that negatives are not allowed under radicals. So what would be the lowest number x could be before I'd hit a negative? It'd be -6, right? What's -6 plus 6? 0. So the domain, x has to be what? -6 or what? Larger. How do you write that? X is greater than or equal to, or as an interval you could write -6 comma infinity. Now is this right the way I did it? It is? No, what's wrong with this? You should have a bracket here at -6. Why? It does include -6, because what's the square root of 0? Okay, and what's the square root of 1, just to clarify? 1. Don't ever leave it as the square root of 1. Okay? All right, so there's the domain. We can only put numbers in from -6 to infinity. So now what's the range going to be? Okay, if the smallest number you can put in is -6, what's the smallest thing you're going to be taking the square root of? 0. So what's the smallest number you're going to get for an answer? So y is greater than or equal to 0, or 0 comma infinity with what here? Bracket and parenthesis. So would I take this and this for answers? Yes. How about these? Yes. All right. So that should get you through your homework. I'm not saying you won't have questions, but that should